Welcome to Roaming Minds.
We talk about the logic behind thinking and why it stops working the way you expected it to.
This season will follow one primary question. What happens when you do the thing that was supposed to make the thinking stop, but it just kept looping?
You wrote it down, you told someone, you put it on your calendar. Sometimes doing that works. Sometimes it just moves it somewhere else that still requires your attention.
We will explore this alongside expert guests this season in addition to our usual format. I'm AJ.
And I'm Carlos. Let's get into it.
Hot out.
How are you doing, Mr. AJ? I haven't seen you in a while, so I just kind of want to get,
I know, it's been a
what's
week and a
going on
half.
with you.
It's so crazy. I just got back from vacation, so I'm good, man.
Must be nice. I unfortunately
Mhm.
have been in the trenches, just school, working, and
Yeah.
a lot of crazy shit. So
Well, it's okay. I still worked all through vacation. But
I mean,
that's okay.
I know you're like a workhorse. You work 20. Your vacation is just working
It's in a
10
separate
hours
location.
instead of 12 hours, and you'll just
I
work 10
took it down
hours
a little-
at the beach, and instead of in your house or at work.
Yeah. It's it just takes a different form. So
It does.
yeah.
But actually, that conversation kind of brings what we'll be kind of getting into a slightly a little bit today. And when you're having, like we were just having, you're having a conversation and you kind of take that pause and you go, I haven't really told anybody this yet, because I had that realize it, because I just had that moment, because when we look back at the recording, I had that pause myself, and I was like, I actually haven't told people know that I'm busy, but I've not really verbalized that it feels like the world is crashing down on me. I'm okay, guys, nothing's wrong, but that pause, and where you realize that whatever is about to come next, and you don't know where it's going to go, and you don't know what's going to really come out of that is an experience that you share, or you have a different perspective on.
So I think there's multiple different ways that we can take it, and I think you hit on a different one that what I had in mind, but that really doesn't make any bit of a difference. We're still talking about the same idea. We're still talking about naming things. We're still talking about vocalizing. It doesn't have to be pain. I don't want to pigeonhole us right into that, because that's where I was thinking. The second that I read it, I haven't told anyone this. I was like, "Ooh, man, that goes stupid deep or stupid shallow, no matter which way you want to be." And it doesn't. Again, you brought up it can just be anxiety over what's next. It can be really simple. It maybe doesn't have to do that. It can be a celebratory moment. Oh, I got a new job and I just haven't said anything to anybody yet. There's any number of ways that can go.
Correct.
Down to deepest, darkest secrets that you've never told anybody for 20, 30 years. There's multiple different avenues. But for us, I think what is going to be the most important thing is what it does, why we do it, really thinking about why is that such a universal experience? Why is it such a universal experience of holding on to things? And what happens when we don't hold on to those things is really like the big focus, is what happens when we don't. We probably, at any point in time, have something going on that we don't tell people. And that varies from person to person. It varies from situation to situation. I know, dude, I carried secrets for decades at points in time. That's okay. I also carry things that I don't just tell everybody immediately. This is fairly normal. That's how we operate. I'll never forget getting into an argument with that guy in art school. He's this working professional artist. And he's like, Japanese say we have 3 faces that we show to people. And me being the smartass that I am, I'm like, well, I always show the same thing to everybody. And In all honesty, that's not entirely inaccurate. I've learned to be better with that. But at the point in time when I heard that, that was such a foreign concept to me that I was just like, no, man, come on. Um, but
I
that
mean,
is,
I think sometimes we have the illusion that we present the same face to everybody, but it's really not. Because really at the core, yes, at the core of our personality is whatever we believe is universally true that we show to everybody, whatever
mm,
qualities you think you may have, but it is slightly adjusted to whatever you meet, because you know, don't necessarily treat a stranger the same. You treat them the same way you would treat your friends, but it's a difference. So sometimes that can be presented as a different face, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
So I think ultimately, like, what it really boils down to is levels of comfortability, and that's fine. We all have different levels of comfortability with the people that we meet on any given point in time. Obviously, the person who is your best friend, you're going to tell different things to than the person that you just met. Again, not having people that I just met or best friends at certain points in time, there was no distinguishment between the two. So that's why I say I didn't understand it, but that's evolved over time. And so that kind of was one of the things that I still pay attention to today. Who needs to know or what it is? And granted, this is not the meat of what we really want to talk about today. This is just kind of explaining those concepts and those ideas. It's really interesting that we have these ideas of, oh no, we shouldn't tell people certain things. I'm going to ask a very valid question. Why in the fuck does it matter? I mean, ultimately, it matters not one bit if I told you or another person the exact same piece of information. Now, you two are both going to react in very, very different ways, which is to be expected. However, it's not like just because I told some random person X and I told you X, any piece of my life is going to shift. Just because I'm being open and honest with people does not mean that that's going to be the case. Now, it's really interesting because I don't know if you've ever met those people that just walk up and start telling you their life story. What's the first thing that you think about? Yeah, see? Exactly. You think they're crazy. You're like, wait, but is it because they're telling you everything or because they just won't shut up?
The thing, it's a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm a little bit of an expert in this because this happens to me constantly where people, I will meet somebody within like 10 minutes and suddenly I know, I'm not,
way too much.
I don't want to say
Right,
specific,
right.
but I don't, because people listen, they might start identifying themselves, and I'm not about it. And that is not my thing of telling other people's business.
Understood.
But and now I know a lot about you, and I barely know your name, and I barely know what's your favorite color. I barely know basics information about you, but somehow I know what your mother, grandfather, or your second cousin, or your next door neighbor have done to you. And
Yep,
I'm
your
like,
third baby mama on the right-hand side.
and this is a lot. And I'm just like, oh, do I have a face that people just come and tell me this type of stuff? That's my own burden to deal with.
It's
But
just your warm demeanor.
no, but it's a combination of I listen. I really do listen to people. So sometimes when
Mhm.
people are presented with that, it gives them ammunition to just continuing.
Right.
And the problem is one story just leads to another. And now you have met them 10 minutes and you are on the fifth story. And
Mhm.
somehow you're just like, all I said was you, hello, hi, how are you?
Yeah, right. I did not need to know that. No. So it's really it's really interesting because that really segues us really nicely. Why is it? And I'll come back to the differentiation between all of them in a little bit, but I think that this is more important right now. Why is it that those people continue to tell every single person rather than experience relief from telling somebody. Because that, based off of like psychotherapy and things like that, that should, in theory, reduce that load a little bit.
Mhm.
But it doesn't. Why? Because if
It's
not,
a bit-
man, I've watched it. I've literally, man, I'll never forget in grad school. Grad school sitting there, somebody breaking down over some shit that was a normal way of how that school operated. It was what it was. I'm literally in tears. I'm like, dude, it's all good. X, Y, Z, you'll be just fine. But you gotta, you gotta take the action. Walked away. I'm about to walk into the classroom. Somebody else walks up. Exact same story. And you're like, come on, man. This can't be that serious. At this point, it's just attention. In that, I'm not saying all cases, I would never, but at that point, obviously. But it's really interesting that it doesn't just stop immediately. And that was more where I wanted to go today.
yeah.
Because those are the things that we are concerned about. Ultimately, we're all about reducing that cognitive load and that cognitive overhead. For people with any sort of anxiety, and whether that's generalized anxiety disorder or just I'm stressed out from work, normal levels of anxiety, we are really concerned with offloading that and not being concerned with that anymore. Not to say that that doesn't exist. There's a very big difference between I'm not looking at you, and being like, all right, this is good. This is a closed decision loop, whatever. We're done with it. Now we can move on. And I do think it's so fascinating that those people that run up and just start running their mouths do not stop.
And because I think, for example, I'm a type of person who keeps everything in. So the moment that I do decide to share whatever it is with whoever I decide to, at the moment, even years afterwards, it does bring a certain level of catharsis. And then I usually don't bring it up again. And what I think happens with a lot of these people, where they can tell you the most heinous stuff over and over and over and over again without necessarily any catharsis, is that the problem is the heinous action or whatever the story that may have happened to them or they're telling. That's not really the problem. To me, the reason I keep quiet is because that's the problem to me. That's the problem. So once you talk about it, you go free from it. To them, that's just simply an effect of the thing. So so they can keep telling it without getting that relief. Because once you start analyzing it, it's really not what's bothering them. And sometimes once you get to the bottom of what's bothering them, you'll notice that the story kind of stops.
I agree with you to some extent. I do think that in some cases, everything that is going on isn't the only issue going on. I will never disagree in that. But I also am going to push back a little with, just because I talked about it means that it's done and over with, because that's not always the case. We're looking at a very, very extreme example. Somebody that just never speaks, or that always speaks. But it affects people who don't ever speak as well. And just because somebody that doesn't ever speak says something once doesn't mean that issue just goes ahead and dissolves away.
I did kind of oversimplify, because I'm proof of that. Just because I tell somebody something once doesn't mean automatically it's like, oof, I'm better now. That thing is no longer a problem in my life. Never again will I ever talk to about it to anybody. No, that was an oversimplification on my part.
And that's fine. That's really not a big deal. But that goes to show you that there's a different mechanism at play that we tend not to think about beforehand. And there's a couple of them I think that work in conjunction to go ahead and make that work. Number one, again, is the big one that I'm going to come back to probably all season, is intention. What is your intent in telling somebody this is what is going on? And so it's a very, very hard question to answer, especially for us in our more formative years, because we have, I don't know, man, maybe it's just me, but somewhere in my mid-20s, maybe a little bit after, my ego just dropped considerably. Whereas at one point in time, it was just outrageous. And I'm not telling you that I can't be arrogant or what. I'm not telling you that I'm magically cured. No. But what happened is there were certain things that just became stupid trivial after a certain point. It might have been after my son was born. And you're just like, whatever. While we have that massive ego in place, it becomes much more difficult to find out the actual driver of what is causing that. Because, okay, so I'm going to come back to my example in grad school. If I had been 23 and doing that same thing and in that same process and going, shit, what am I going to do? I would be talking to everybody. I'm not saying me personally. I'm just talking, again, that situation, because that was never going to be my jam. We've identified, anybody else around can see, okay, this is attention at its finest. But I guarantee you at 23, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this for attention. That is not an easy fucking pill to swallow. It's not like those tiny little baby aspirin. It's like that horse pill antibiotic that you're like, God dang it, I don't want this.
Augmentin, one of my favorite drugs. It's like the big horse pill that you look at and go, how the fuck am I supposed to swallow that?
Right. And that's part of the issue with determining intention. Not to say that it can't be done, but that does make it significantly more difficult. The other is action. And it's super easy to take contrary action. Whether we have the right intention or not, we can still find contrary action. If I know I'm taking a specific path to the grocery store every day, I can sit there, go out my driveway the other way, and take contrary action and get a different experience. That is one thing that action does not care what you believe, what it makes no difference. It is far more powerful with belief and intention behind it. However, it doesn't always, those are not always prerequisites in order to begin to start taking contrary action. And so if I'm somebody who's fed up with something and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start taking X action, kind of like what your initial example was with only having, only telling people at some points in time. So, okay, you went and you told somebody you took a contrary action to what you were doing, which was holding it in constantly, and got a different result. It may not have been that the loop closed in its entirety, but it began to go ahead and cover that up and start making that into something else. These things that grab us begin with us. but they also have to end with us. We've talked about externalizing cognition effectively for the past 2 episodes. We offloaded cognitive processes to an app. We offload cognitive processes to a notebook or to something else. But it didn't work. Why did that not work? Well, it didn't work because ultimately it always comes back to us. If we are not handling us, no amount of externalization is going to go ahead and make that So it ties back in with a lot of the things that we've been talking about across 4 seasons. It is about having that agency to know ourselves well enough. Ideally, this is perfectly idealized. We have enough agency to recognize it in ourselves to be able to say, hey, maybe it's as simple as something is off. It doesn't have to be like, oh, well, I am distraught because of XYZ coupled with Zeta, binded with a bit of alpha, and just to throw in a little bit of omega over there. That seems overly ambitious to me. Sometimes it really is just, oh man, I'm off.
Yeah.
Taking that agency and doing some deeper work. Figuring out, all right, well, what is it that is actually bothering me? Is it a mental process? Is it a physical process? Is it an external process? Because while we can't solve anything through externals alone, that doesn't mean that our externals don't influence us and provide that stimulus. But again, setting it up so that you can identify what areas the problem is happening. Now, the only thing that's good for, right, is assisting with belief and intention. If I know where it is, if I know that, so I'll give you just an idea. We were talking earlier about the day yesterday. I mean, out the door at 6:30. Back-to-back meetings from like 10:30 on. So I did X until this time. I did some family stuff until this time. Then I sat down for back-to-back meetings. Then I drove 3 hours home, unloaded everything, dealt with the things I hadn't been able to deal with for a week, and then turned around and drove straight to Kung Fu, ran a couple of miles for the first time in a week, and then went ahead and I led a structured class. I could not perform the same as I could a week ago. There were so many different factors that attributed to that. I sat in a car for 3 whole hours. I had been running drained all day because I got some information that needed to be reviewed. So for 3 hours in that car, rather than enjoying myself and relaxing on the way home, all I did was think about, okay, well, this is going to be this, and this can do this, and this can do this. Just constantly rolling. I forgot my running shoes at the beach, so I am using an old pair. All of these factors contribute into, hey, I'm performing a little bit worse than I was a week ago. However, if I was not thinking and in that mind space and really being like, okay, well, what's what are some of the things that have happened over the course of the past 24 hours? It would have been, oh man, I'm losing progress. I shouldn't take a week off. Man, I really screwed this up. This is stupid. I'm not doing this anymore. And then your belief spirals out of control and the action goes the opposite direction of the way that we want. I understand that that is not in the context of telling somebody else something, but the solution applies the same way. If, I don't know, if I'm sitting there talking to a trusted person, I don't know, it can be a good buddy, somebody, it could be you, it could be somebody else, and there is something that has been going on for the past couple of weeks that I haven't really said anything about, I can go ahead and make that determination and be like, all right, you know what, now is probably the right time. I've processed it out. I've thought about some of the things that could happen. I've thought about some of the potential actions to take, because it's very rarely just one or the other. The only reason why I said there's always the opposite action is because even if you're not ready, there is always the opposite action, and that's fine. But being able to see that there are multiple paths and then going out and talking about it, right? It's much different because that is helping to process that information. It is sitting there and saying, hey, okay, I did this. This is what I got. This is where I want to be. These are kind of the paths that I see. Am I off the mark? Am I wrong? There's something that I'm not seeing. Assist if you don't mind, or don't. I don't know, man. Whatever your goal in that is much different than, hey, did you know that my girlfriend beats me on the weekends and like I don't know what to do because I wanna like be free, but like she is so attractive and she had my second kid and I don't know if I can handle a second baby mama, and breathe, calm down. Just breathe.
What in the?
Those are two, and I know
is going on.
I know I'm picking on that specific style, but that's just because it's such a useful extreme. I know even if you hold on to things for multiple years at a time, and one day you're just like, hey, I just want to tell you something, and you go ahead and you're like, hey, for the past I don't know, the 4 years I've been secretly scratching my ass before I get in the shower and sniffing it because it was something that I like doing. Carlos, I don't know. I'm just coming up with ridiculous examples.
Why are these?
Somebody out there is doing it.
Why is this one? Why this one?
I'm trying to A, think of one that I've never heard before. B, something ridiculous that hopefully people aren't doing.
Because I'm like, oh, see, and somebody, I'd be like, first of all, why are you telling me this information? What? Why?
Right. Okay. So, and we're going to come back to that in about 20 seconds. But again, just because I told you that I was doing it doesn't make the loop stop. Maybe the next day I was like, yeah, I told that guy, but the power of the crack is just too enticing. I don't know. Oh, that's so jacked up.
That's good. That's good. We are running a serious podcast here, sir.
Okay, so just to bring it back to seriousness, you asked the question of why? Why are you telling me this? That is part of the reason why nobody says anything. Because we are so afraid of judgment, because we have so much internal strife over like, are these people going to accept me?
No.
Is it going to be okay? And I'm going to tell you. No, go for it.
No, go ahead. I was going to say a lot of us live our life with fear. Fear
Right.
is actually the governing emotion. A lot of people don't think this, but
Hmm.
because when we think of fear, we think of this adrenaline rush and thing like that. But it's actually fear that governs most of our behavior and actions. Because sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Because
Sure.
if you want to drive 120 miles down the road, the fear might kick in. I could get stopped or I could get in a tragic accident, and that stops you from doing that, which is overall for your benefit. But in a lot of ways, fears also govern our life and what we feel we can share with people or how we feel society will perceive us because we don't want to be perceived as quote unquote the unusual one when or the not normal one when there really is no consensus of what normal is. Because even like, yes, we have a consensus of normal, but even if you look within that, there is so much
Hmm.
diversity and so much separation that it's insane that we have these categories. It is the human brain, as we've talked in previous season about how it's easy to compartmentalize things and put people in boxes because it just makes life easier in order to move through this world.
Right. Yeah, no, that fear is a very solid driver. And it fits in with all of the neural mechanisms that we've discussed previously. Predictive processing in immediately it ties in with fear super easily. Think about early human life. If I come into contact with a predator or even get near one, because that's where that predictive processing really kind of shines. Oh, look, there are lion tracks. Let me go investigate. No, if I know it's a lion and I know that I have a history of me being eaten, I'm going. Obviously, not me being eaten, but people being eaten. There we go. Let's get that story straight. I'm going to run the other way. That is a very useful fear based mechanism. When it comes to emotionality, and I don't even know if that's a word, to be honest with you. Whatever. When it comes to our emotions, and when it comes to other interactions with other humans, having those secrets does nothing for us.
Mm-hmm.
This is why um you get all of this breakdown between families, especially these days, because there's I hate to use the term, but I'm going to. There is no intimacy whatsoever. But all that really means is that you are not being honest about what is going on with you, or I am not being honest with what is going on
Yeah.
about me. And therefore, there are roadblocks, there are emotional and mental blocks from me getting to deal with that other person. And again, I'm not trying to turn this into like an emotions based idea. I'm just trying to work out the logic as to this is why it makes sense that we don't end up doing these things in the correct format. Because if I think I'm going to be judged, number one, I'm not going to tell you. Number two, maybe I'm not going to process it fully the way that I need to. Because maybe I only want to tell you a fifth of what is actually going on or a fifth of what I actually thought about, which holds that holds multiple things back. It holds back that intention because I've already altered the intention. I'm just trying to get enough so that I think of it almost like a pressure release valve.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to lift off a little bit to lift a little bit of steam out, and then it's going to close right back again.
Yeah.
That intention has already been set out before you started the conversation. The belief, I'm going to be judged, or I don't know, this is not the right time to be, whatever you come up with in that moment that gets you to hold back that information. I'll get to that caveat in a minute. Then fuels the intention and it fuels the action. I am not saying that you should tell everybody everything. What I am saying is that you should know who it is that you can go ahead and process out these things with. Who in your life, and it doesn't matter to me who it is.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a therapist, it can be a friend, it can be a parent, it can be a family member. I don't give a shit. But one
Mm-hmm.
person that you can speak with openly, honestly, without that fear of judgment, where that belief is going to get in the way, without that intention of bogging them down, just to be like, hey, can we just talk to process? That's one of the best. For me, what I've found, right? And this is going to probably be different across other people. Most of the time, I just need to process. I just need to sit there and externalize. Okay, this is it. These are the facts.
Mm-hmm.
This is the outcome that I need. This is the outcome that I think is going to happen. And just going through all of those, that ends up allowing me to go ahead and close that loop and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That requires a few things. That requires that agency. Again, I know myself well enough to be like, oh, okay. Processing out these thoughts is what is going to be most beneficial to me. So the person that I go and find to talk about that is going to be able to help me. I'm not going to sit there and talk to a 5-year-old about it, because that's not going to help me. Maybe it is going to help me. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't tried. I'm probably not going to, but maybe that's a thing. Maybe you have a small child and you're like, I just need to tell somebody something. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's not going to remember, that's not going to know what you're talking about, that's okay. That's a thing. It's a possibility. It's a possible workable solution.
It is. That's why a lot of kids that go through a lot of traumatic stuff, they actually speak to their stuffed animals. If they have toys, it's a it's a fascinating way where they'll
Right.
tell everything to this inanimate object, and then
Yep.
to the quote unquote humans, they wouldn't say two things. They can even go see a therapist who is trying to get them to talk to them, but no. But sometimes the therapist then have to use dolls. That's what doll therapy and all these type of therapy have got kind of
Yeah.
exist, because so you can
Yep.
start telling this, because
Mhm.
it removes that, which I think we talked about. I think it was season 1 when we talked about chat boxes, and why sometimes people use chat boxes, like
Mhm.
AI chat boxes, for
Yeah.
therapy and advice, rather than a
Mhm.
human, because it
Right.
removes that
Well, so
fear,
that's, yeah.
whether
Right.
justified or unjustified, removes that fear that you might be judged by another person.
Mhm. It's so interesting in that sense. And it's so alarming all at the same time, because that chatbot most likely is using your data in some sort of weird form. Now, are you going to directly experience the net effects of that? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't, I can't guarantee that either way. But what I can say is that there is probably a longer, a side effect that occurs much later using it that way, rather
Mhm.
than that immediate side effect that you're going to get from another human. But you are right. That's 100% accurate. Play therapy is a really big one too, because kids
Mhm.
will typically tend to play out the traumas that they exist. It's super interesting. It's super neat. But yeah, the AI piece is a really big thing. That's also partially, I think it was California, if I'm not mistaken, that just outlawed therapeutic bots, which
I think Chicago also have Illinois did it, because I think I remember sending you an article about Illinois doing it like last year.
yeah, I think so. I know that people are really kind of hopping on that bandwagon, and I know I don't think I'd ever use it for therapeutic advice. There's not an easy answer for that one, because there is so much sensitivity that surrounds that. Not even just the sensitivity of the information, but the sensitivity of the person on the other end. And I actually I told you I talked with a guest that's going to be upcoming in a few Yeah, I don't know. We haven't scheduled out the time, but who's working on kind of developing some technology that could actually aid in that. And I don't want to get too detailed into it because that's not going to be a thing. But just to highlight, like, we are definitely not there. But I do think that this kind of brings up a couple of important points because I know what's kind of coming in the future. It is my firm belief that I very rarely will argue with anybody in the moment. Especially, maybe not argue, but maybe that's a bad way of describing. I don't know.
Jimmy,
But let me
like if
rephrase it.
somebody comes to you, you'll never outright question whatever they're telling you.
I'm just gonna be like, oh, that's interesting, and then I'm gonna go figure out whatever later. I think, especially as we get more and more guests, it's important to kind of keep in mind, and that's the only thing that made me think about it, because we will have some guests from all over the world that have different ideas, that have different
Mhm.
beliefs than the ones that you and I were presented with growing up, and that I'm sure a lot of people listening will also find to be against what they know. And that's all right. It is not my job, nor is it my purpose to sit here and disagree or to sit and argue. It is my purpose to try and find some common ground so that we can continue on trying to facilitate these conversations more so that they become more prominent, and not just when I was talking to somebody, I forget who it was, but I'm really interested in finding out some more about 3 a.m. conversations. These are typically tend to be more 3 a.m. conversations after, I don't know, who knows,
I
whatever.
think the word you were looking for is just because somebody comes here and they're presenting a viewpoint and we necessarily don't give that quote unquote necessary pushback doesn't necessarily mean it's an endorsement of said
Right.
opinion or
Yeah,
idea.
we have, our beliefs are completely
Yeah.
separate.
Some
Um,
and sometimes it's hard to really, because sometimes you're just hearing the perspective for the first time because it's
mhm,
in a natural conversation
right.
and you're giving room, and it's not like we're having a 3 hour. It's not we're not one of those 3 hour podcasts, because then we can
Right.
have the time to do that. This is
Mhm.
at max an hour, and so we have a lot of things we want to go through.
The whole idea is facilitating conversations that can be useful to other people. Now, again, all of our ideas are relevant until they have been physically proven otherwise. And that is probably the only time that I will step in, is if it has been physically proven otherwise and it is absolutely not appropriate. That's it. Those are the only times. But other than that, people will talk about some ideas that can seem outlandish, and that's okay. That's fine. We're just gonna sit there and say, sounds good. Tell me more about that. Provided it's not
Veer
hurting
off into
anything.
into actual crazy territory.
It makes no difference to me, because I think that that's important. Again, we were just talking about how in any sort of conversation, you need some level of openness and some level of access in order to be able to carry out that conversation. And so I do think that that is super important. And I think that that'll probably lead us to our fantastic reflection point, because I think we've kind of hit our natural point. But and I'm going to kind of modify the one that we had real quick, because this one's, we kind of went a different direction than what we had planned. But think about something that maybe you're holding on to, something that you don't really, not interested in telling people, something that you're kind of a little bit wary, and then sit back and do a deeper dive. Think about, well, what's the point of telling somebody? What is my intention behind it? What are my current beliefs that are shaping me telling somebody or not telling somebody, in whichever respect it is? And then which actions are going to be most beneficial in order for me to move beyond this? And I think that that's going to be our best bet forward.
And always remember, if you need anything, you can always get session at theinactive.com, where we can provide you with whatever whatever needs you may have. And we're always here for you guys. And thank you for a wonderful episode. Thank you so much. That's the episode.
If something is still ruminating, that's the specific thing one inactive session is built for. The session link is at theinactive.com.
If it was worth your time, subscribe. New episode every week for this season.
And there is a question waiting for you in the comments. Answer it if you feel so inclined.
We read them.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.